It's time to sit back, relax, and listen to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life will inspire, motivate, and empower you. Live your best life now. Listen, learn, think, and decide. Change your attitude, change your life. And now, here's your host, Joan Herman.
Welcome to Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. I'm Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in. Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life brings you interviews with some of the most inspirational and influential people in the world. It's our goal to educate and empower you so you can live your best life now. Thank you for taking time for yourself, and thank you for letting us be a part of your life. We have another great show for you today. Today's guest, filmmaker Bill Bennett, heard a voice one day that may have saved his life. Bill listened to that voice, and ever since, he has been determined to find out what that voice was, where it came from, and why his life was saved. His search took him to some of the most remote and sacred places on the planet, where he spoke about intuition with holy men and mystics, saints, research scientists, and psychiatrists. He's here today to share some of what he has learned. Bill has made numerous feature films and documentaries, and he's won many awards both in his home country of Australia and internationally. His new film is PGS, Intuition is Your Personal Guidance System. Welcome, Bill. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Joan.
Bill, thank you for being here because I think intuition is a fascinating topic. I went through some challenges in life, and ever since that time, intuition has really become my personal guidance system. And I knew that you experienced something that changed the course of your life. One day you heard a voice that you believe saved your life. So tell us what you were doing that day and what did the voice sound like?
Well, I was actually working on a movie in New Orleans, and I was driving to the airport early one morning. In fact, I'd slept in, I was running a little bit late, and I was taking the back roads to get to the airport. And as I approached an intersection, I had a green light up ahead, and my natural inclination, in fact, was to speed up to get through on the green because I was running late. But as I approached this intersection, I heard this voice, and the voice said, "Slow down," which was weird because I'd never heard a voice like this before. And it was also strange because it seemed like there was no reason to slow down. There was no other traffic on the road. Anyway, so I went to speed again to get through on the green. The voice said again, "Slow down." So I did slow down. And as I entered the intersection, this huge truck came out from my right. It must have gone through the red light. And it literally just missed me by inches. It just missed me by inches. And I pulled up on the other side of the road, shaken and really very quite affected by this. The adrenaline was pumping through my body like crazy. And I just thought, what on earth has just happened? Because I have no doubt that had I not heard that voice and had I not listened to that voice, I would have been killed.
Bill, was it an actual voice or was it a thought?
No, it was a voice. It was a voice. And that's what made it so strange. And the only way that I can really describe it, because I've thought about it a lot since, is that it's like when you put, those headphone buds that you put in your ear, when you're listening to music and so forth. It's like that. It was both inside and outside. And that's the only way that I can really describe it.
Have you ever heard that voice again?
No, that's been the only time. But when I think back on it, I have had other instances of what I now know to be intuition, but never manifested as a voice.
Hearing this voice, Bill, sent you on a quest to determine what it was that happened to you. When did you come to realize that it was your intuition?
Well, after that happened, it played on my mind for a lot. And I didn't think initially, I've got to make a film about this. I was more curious as to find out what happened. And so I began to read. Now, Joan, you've got to understand, I come from a secular background. And in fact, I grew up in a family that believed wholly and solely in science. My family couldn't measure it or quantify it some way. They did not believe that it exists. Both my parents were dentists. All my siblings are in the medical professions. And then I went into journalism. So I approached this with a level of, if you like, skepticism. But I began to read, and then, I don't know, it just began to obsess me. There's no doubt that this film has fundamentally changed my life. I began getting serious about the film in about 2004, 2005. What was really interesting, Joan, is this. As you said in your intro, I've made a lot of films, and I know how to put a film together. I work both as a producer and a director. And I tried early on to make this film in the way that I'd made other films, And it just didn't work. It just wasn't coming together. People would say to me, financiers and distributors and so forth, the people that I've dealt with in the past would say to me, Bill, this is a great idea. I'm sure there's a market for it, but this is just too out of the box. We can't touch this. And I gradually came to the understanding that if I was to make this film, then I had to make it differently. And that meant changing my fundamental attitudes to what I was doing.
So, Bill, from your research and from talking to all of these amazing people, what have you learned about the role of intuition in our life?
Well, number one, I believe that intuition is a part of our bodily system. This is what I've come to believe, that it is as legitimate a functioning system in our body as any other system, such as our circulatory system, our immune system, our digestive system, all of these other systems. It is a functioning system, and it's real, and it exists. And it exists to guide us through life and to keep us safe. Now, it manifests in various ways. In the dramatic way that it manifested with me, it was a voice that told me to slow down because it wanted to save my life. But it can manifest in other ways as well. I think pretty much everybody listening to this will have experienced intuition in some form or another, whether it be a gut feeling, or some other more perhaps obvious way. But it exists. It's a functioning system, and it's there for us to use if we know how to use it. But the first step is to acknowledge that it exists. And that was a big step for me.
Bill, to give an example of how intuition can be impactful in our life, James Van Praagh, who is featured in your movie Intuition, he was a recent guest on this show. And just before he came on the show, I had an idea about doing an event with him while he was in the area. And I had that idea on a Saturday. I reached out to his people that Monday, and the next day we had an entire event planned. And you know this industry, it never happens that quickly. So I intuitively had this idea. I took action, and the entire thing came together within 3 days. And I bring this up because I think we all get these intuitive thoughts. We know these things that we can do, but we don't because we're afraid. We let fear get in the way.
There's one word, fear.
Yeah.
and mistrust. There's something that I've learned in the making of the film. It's this very nifty couple of words. It's called first thought, best thought. And I now operate off that mantra, if you like. First thought, best thought. Our intuitive self pings us with a thought. It's our first thought. And most of us go, oh, no, that's crazy. That'll never happen. I'd be laughed at if I did that. That's just too left field. It will never work out. We dismiss that for whatever reason. And then we go with our second thought, which is our logical, rational thought, which is our safe thought. And that safe thought keeps us moribund. It keeps us constricted. It stops us from expansion. Our first thought is our intuitive thought. That's the thought that you went with when you said, okay, I'm going to put that event together. And that's the thought that I finally, after. You see, the thing is that I've come to believe that spirit is persistent. Now, our intuitive self, which I regard as being an aspect of spirit, is persistent. It will keep at us, and it will try different ways to get our attention. And, so if you dismiss your first thought, then spirit will find, your intuitive self, your guidance system will find some other way to connect with you to get what it believes is the best thing for you and the best thing. In the case of that situation with James Van Praagh, that's the best thing for world consciousness, what you did.
Oh, I agree. That was something that was definitely supposed to happen. And it only occurred because I followed that feeling. I followed that thought. And I pushed my fears aside and went with it. So, understanding the importance of intuition and the role it can play in life, what advice do you offer our listeners to help them develop that muscle?
Yeah, look, it's a really, really good question. I guess a lot depends upon the particular level of evolution that a person is at in their life. There are a couple of key phrases that came up with me time and time again with all the people that I in the film. And Joan, I've got to say, just as an aside, I ended up making the film intuitively. I didn't know, with respect to James, I didn't know who James Van Praagh was, but I was led from person to person to person. I never had a list of people that I should interview, like the top intuitive experts in the world, and I'd tick them off one by one as I went and interviewed them. That never happened. I was intuitively led from person to person to person. And that led me to people like Carolyn Mace and Dr. Norm Shealy and Judith Orloff and James and so forth. So one of the things that came up in all of the people that I spoke to is pay attention. And that means paying attention not only to the things around you, but also to yourself, to those whispers in your soul, to those thoughts that you have about the circumstances, the people around you. And really give that some thought. Pay attention. But the other thing, too, is, and Carolyn says this so eloquently in the film, is clean up your life. Build up your self-esteem. You cannot hope to connect with your intuitive system if you have low self-esteem and if you harbor fear in its various forms, such as anger and hostility and competitiveness and jealousy and all those other forms that fear manifests as.
The film is PGS. Intuition is Your Personal Guidance System by Bill Bennett. If you would like to learn more about Bill and the film, you can visit pgsthemovie.com. Bill, in our final moments, what's the takeaway? What would you like to leave our listeners with?
Look, I came to the conclusion that I made the film for a couple of reasons. One is to satisfy my curiosity about what that voice was. But as the film progressed, I realized that I was actually working on something bigger. And I think that bigger thing is to demystify intuition so that people can begin to trust and use their intuition in their everyday lives. There are a number of people in the film that talk about how intuition doesn't steer you wrong. And in fact, Carolyn May says something really quite wonderful in the film that I thought a lot about. How do you know what's a bad thing? You might think that intuition is leading you down the wrong path, but how do you know it's the wrong path? How do you know that it is a bad thing? It could, in fact, end up being that path that leads you to the greatest moments in your life. And ultimately, that's what I want people to take away from. If you follow your intuition, it will lead you to your true fulfillment as a human being.
Bill, how can our audience view PGS?
There are two ways, Joan, and thanks for asking the question. One is through what's called theatrical on demand. I call them pop-up screenings. And if somebody wants to organise a pop-up screening, they need to host the film in their particular area and get the minimum number of people required to make the screening happen. That happens through our distributor, Gather Films. Later in the year, the film will be released on video on demand and as a digital download. So those are the two ways to watch the film, yeah.
Bill, thank you so much for being here with us today. I am so happy that you listened to that voice and that you have since gone on to teach us, I'm sure you are too, and that you have since gone on to teach us how we can pay attention to our intuition. And I love what you said, and this is a great takeaway. First thought, best thought. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Joan. Thank you.
This is Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Thank you for joining us. I hope you found the show informative. At Change Your Attitude, Change Your Life, we believe that knowledge is power. Take what you've learned, apply it, and live your best life now. Remember that the information provided are the opinions of our guests and should never replace the advice of a professional who knows your personal situation. If you'd like more information, visit our website, CYACYL.com. While on the site, listen to past shows on demand, read our digital magazine, take part in the book club, check out our team, and be sure to follow the show on social media. Until next time, this is Joan Herman. Thanks for tuning in.